Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a discharge test on an AtemPower 200 amp hour lithium ferrophosphate battery. I've charged this battery up to its 14.6 volts. I've let it absorb now for a good couple of hours. I've reset both shunts that I've got and cleared the history. So we'll put some load onto this and we'll see how much we can get out of it. Okay, so I've just plugged in the old heat gun. You can hear it whirring away in the background there. And we're putting in 68 amps of load on the battery. So, yeah, that's obviously more than 0.2C. But, hey, I'm working with what I've got. This is going to take quite some time to bring this battery down. So, I'll test it and come back to you a bit later on. Thanks. Okay, so it's settled in now at about 900 watts or 70 amps. And 70 amps is around the 68 to 70 amps is about the 0.35C discharge. So obviously that's a lot. Been running for some time now. We've taken 122.3 amp hours out of the battery. Still running around that 900 watts. Let's have a look. 71 amps, which I think is what I said before. It was come down a little bit. 35% capacity remaining, so we'll come back a bit later on and see how we're going. Okay, the AtemPower 200 amp hour battery now showing 0% remaining, and we've pulled 193 amp hours from this battery down to 11.62 volts. It won't be long now before she cuts out. Will it get 200 amp hours? Yeah, I don't know. It's a very cheap battery. It's the bottom of the road sort of battery, I would think. But, you know, I thought it was a good test to do, readily available from plenty of retailers. You get it online, you know, you can get yourself a bargain. I'll stay with it and we'll see how long it takes for this battery to cut out. I'd be happy with 195 amp hours out of a 200 amp hour battery, considering I'm not testing it at 0.2C. I'm actually testing it at about 0.35C, or maybe even a little bit more than that. Interesting, but like, I don't know whether you can see this in the video, but it's a little bit wobbly on the table. It doesn't actually sit flat on the table. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you know, will it hurt the operation of the battery? I don't know. You know, I think it's probably minor. The box and the casing's all pretty good. Terminals seem okay. You know, maximum continuous discharge current is 200 amps on this battery. So what I might do is charge it back up again, let it, you know, sit there and absorb, let it do what it needs to do, and then I'll do a hard discharge on it at maybe 150 amps, you know, instead of the 80 that it's come up to now. So obviously the amps go up as the voltage comes down. So, well, let's see what we get to. Still going. Yeah. It also came with a shunt. So I thought that was interesting. There's a little shunt here. 200 amp shunt, it says, with a little display. So I thought that was interesting. It was like a little pack that was on offer for I think it was $10 more or something like that, and you got this shunt. It looks nasty, but it's cheap and nasty. I'm not sure whether, you know, what size lugs cable you could put on that. It's pretty small, but hey, you know, for $10, I might test it out and see what a $10 shunt looks like. I'm sure it's worth more than that individually. They just had it as a package deal, you know, with the battery. You know, would I trust the shunt? I don't know. Let's maybe test it and see what it you know, what it does. It could be good enough for the average person, but you know, you compare it to, you know, the Victron shunt, which is there. You know, it's hard to think I can really get any decent cable on that. But let's give it the benefit of the doubt and test the $10 shunt. We're still going, 197.2 now. voltage has come down to 10.91. Now remember, the cutoff voltage, as I said, is 10 volt on this battery. So it's coming down quite fast now. So we'll see whether it cuts out at 10 volt or not. You know, it may not even cut out at 10 volt. We could get like a cell drop at a minimum level. So, you know, a cell could cause it to trip the BMS before the actual overall pack voltage does. So just keep an eye on it. I tell you what, if we get the 200 out of this, you can't complain. Still going. Wow. Still going. Got the dry powers down there. Haven't had the chance to do anything with those yet. 10.2. I'd say that's just about all over. Okay, still dropping, under 10 volts now. Now remember, that 10 volt will be at the shunt. It could be slightly higher at the BMS or at the battery. So let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. Hey, we've cracked the 200 amp hours from our and there it goes. 200.1. There you go, guys. I'll disconnect the load on that now. Obviously, low battery voltage, and it hit 200 amp hours. I gotta say, I'm happy. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed that one. Like I said, I will do another discharge test on it. I'll charge it back up now, and then I'll discharge it at 150 amps or something. I'll really put some load on it next time around and see what we get out of it. But I'm impressed. Okay, so I've worked out that it's the inverter that went into low voltage and not the battery kicking the BMS in. So what I've done is I've put a H7 bulb or something there, 12 volt bulb with alligator clamps directly onto the battery and onto the shunt, and I'm also charging up a torch. So I've actually got now another 5 amps of load on it, and we're up to 200.6 amp hours now. So I'm going to let that run. That's about all I can do quickly. Might hunt around the shed, see if I can find something with a bigger load, and let's see what we get out of this battery. Okay, next morning, back at the AtemPower battery, recharged it overnight, back up to its 200 amp hours. By the way, I'm not sure if you realised, it actually finished off at 201.6 amp hours from the 70 amp discharge. So I reckon that was pretty good. It did well. I'm going to test it today doing a higher discharge rate. I'll try and get to about 150 amps. So it's rated at a max continuous discharge current of 200 amps, but I think I've got about 150 I can put on it. Cleared both the shunts, taken it back to 0. It's been sitting there overnight now, so it's absorbed, it's ready to go. Okay, we'll turn the inverter back on. Turn the inverter on, menu, multi, on. Pull the solar out of it. And let's plug in some load. Let's see what we get. Okay. So we're getting 140 amps, 142, 143. It's creeping up. Looks like it's settled it down. It's still moving around a little bit. There we go. Let's call it 145 amp load. No, 146. Okay. let's call that 147 amps. So if we're doing that today at test 2 at 147 amp, which is 1840 watt. 1840 watt. All right, so that'll probably take well, a bit over an hour and a bit, hour and a half maybe. So I'll come back a bit later on and we'll see how it's going. Just about to cut out now. So we've got 1% of capacity remaining, but we've only pulled 182 amp hours. Voltage has now come down to 11.73. So let's see what we can get out of this battery. Seems a long way short of 200, but you know, we are pulling 160 amps continuous out of this battery now, and it is an El Cheapo battery. So, oh, that's quite warm on top to touch. So obviously the BMS is working in there. We'll stay with this until it cuts out. Hopefully we can see over that, you know, 190 amp hours. Yeah. I wouldn't say that's hot, it's warm. It's cold on the sides. It's obviously, I'd say the BMS is just in under there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack this open and have a look inside. I believe it's got cylindrical cells in this battery and not prismatic. So as soon as this cuts out, I'm going to pull it apart and see where we get to. Well, it still could be quite some time. And look, again, I'm assuming that this is going to cut off before this, simply because I can't get this set lower than it was either 9.3 or 9.5 volts is the cutout, and you can't go any lower than that on the Multi-Plus. So yesterday when I did the capacity test and I got that 201.6, you'll recall that it cut out at 200.1, and then I light bulbed it and put like a H7 bulb on there and got the rest of it out. So I got another 1.5 amp hours out of the battery by doing that. Okay, it still seems to be holding the voltage. We're at 189 amp hours now. I'll come back in a minute and see how it's going. It looks like it's sort of holding in there quite well at the moment. Okay, it's just come under that 10 volt mark. So what's going to happen is, I would assume the same as what happened yesterday. The inverter is going to cut out before the battery. So we'll just keep watching it until it cuts out. And there we go. Low battery alarm. The inverter has now cut out and we got 199.2 amp hours out of this battery. And I guarantee the same thing will happen if I put the light bulb on it and draw the rest of it out. I'll get more. So I'll do that and come back. So I've got my little light globe connected up, my H7. I really need to come up with a better way to discharge from DC, but while I was mucking around doing that, the voltage actually came up enough and the inverter came back on. But I didn't want to put a huge amount of load through it because it would just trip straight away again. So I've got a light going there and I've got my Victron light on, plus the globe, and the voltage is now at 10.9 volts. So it's going to hold that voltage hopefully for a while. And obviously we're at the 299.8 amp hours. So it's pretty safe to say that this battery, with a continuous dump of 147 amps, and obviously the 140 amps increased as the voltage dropped, so which is quite normal. So the last amp or so that we're going to pull out of it, yes, it has a very low current draw, you know, 8.5, 9 amps. But look, real world testing, would you really pull 1840 watt continuously out of a 200 amp hour battery in the real world test? You wouldn't. You know, that's enough to run a smallish coffee machine. So, you know, you'd run your coffee machine for 5 minutes, you'd be charging your laptop, you'd have your lights on, you'd do what you needed to do, and this battery will deliver you your 200 amp hours. So, you know, I think it's a fairly reasonable battery for the dollars. Now, they say 2,000 cycles, and there's the kicker. Will this battery deliver 200 amp hours continuously for 2,000 cycles? I don't know. And will I know? Look, it's hard to say. I'm not going to muck around and do 2,000 cycles on it, but hey, it's produced its 200 amp hours. It's a cheap battery. That's a pass for me. Still going here. So what I did is I decided to increase the load. I put the old Milwaukee battery charger on, which could be a real world situation. You know, you might want to charge one of these up when you're out on the road or whatever. So the voltage is now coming down. It's all over the place, same as the amperage. There we go, 15 amps, 29 amps. I don't know why it's doing that. It's obviously surging or getting some bad comms. I can't explain it. So we'll watch it again until it cuts out. And then once the inverter cuts out again, we've still got the light on it, and we'll keep going until the BMS cuts out. It seems to have settled now at 15 amps. Oh no, there we go, 28 amps. So remember the previous test, the most I could get out of it was 201.6 amp hours before the battery decided it had enough. Still going. Okay, there goes the inverter again. Oh, and the light bulb's gone off, which indicates the BMS is tripped. So there you go, guys. Let me just plug some solar into that. I'll disconnect the load off it. I'll turn the inverter off. We'll just put a bit of solar on it and that'll bring it up. It'll be enough to bring back the BMS once it sees a bit of power. And we'll just quickly get a reading of what we got out of that battery. I didn't quite see it at the end. It must have been close to the 201.6 amp hours. So I'll take my oh, here comes the BMS because the light bulb just came back on. So I might take that off. And look at the history. No, it just gives me 201. But it was definitely higher than 201. I'll know when I put the video together. So there you go. It probably did make the 201.6 again. I guess I'll find out. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, I guess the people out there that have got Atom batteries, this sort of proves that they go all right. But, you know, will they go 2,000 cycles? Who knows? Okay, I'm back on the other side now. So I've jammed the paint scraper in there, which has loosened it off. And now I can just open it up. Whoop. It's just about to come off. Just the bottom little section there to go. You can see I've just about got the lid off. And I'll be back in a second. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, just got a dolly in there. Ha! All right, I'll be back in a second. Okay, so cover's off. And what I'm not liking is it's filled with expander foam, which due to the heat has gone like all funny and starting to collapse around the unit. It's got a Dali BMS or a copy of a Dali BMS. It's hard to say at this point. Let's get in and have a look at... Now, guys, I don't recommend that you open batteries up at home, eh? Just don't do it. Okay, there we go. So 200 amp and 100 amp, and the rest of it's in Chinese. But look, there is a part number there, so I'll zoom in on that. You can see the part number, and if anyone who wants to look that up, feel free. Yeah, look, I'm really not liking that. And oh, the battery's just loose. Okay, I don't know if anyone just saw that. That cell, that battery is just loose sitting inside this box. I'm not happy about that at all. Yeah, okay. Nothing else really surprising, but that to me is a real problem. That's not going to last. Longevity of that is going to be a real issue. Yes, it pulled the amp hours out of the battery. It did it at a reasonable discharge, and it did it at a high discharge rate. But I think at continuous high discharge rates, that mess is just going to fall apart. The battery's loose in the box, and it's a real problem. Okay guys, I've removed some of the melted marshmallow. This battery, the cells are just loose inside this battery. You know, this is the AtemPower 200 amp. It's got a DALI BMS in it, or a copy of a DALI. I'm not quite sure at this point in time. But this thing's just loose. It's floating free in this box. Apart from the melted marshmallow holding it there, which it wasn't, it was clear that it had been shifting around in this box. I would not recommend putting this in a mobile application. And quite frankly, I don't know that I would actually buy this battery based on what I've seen now. You guys be the judge. If you want to take the risk and you know, put this in a battery box underneath your caravan and bouncing down the highway, good luck to you. But it's not going to be me, that's for sure.